Hello guys, my name is Michael, and today we are going to move on from labels to a new widget, and we are going to talk about GTK-Entry because it is another important widget which you will need it, and here we can learn how we can work with this widget. So for this we go to see its reference manual. So GTK-Entry, yes, it's a reference manual, and as you can see it has a lot of functions, but we are not gonna work with all of them, but most of them, or at least most important functions which you need to start working with GTK, and after you understand those functions, then the other functions has to be just your last problem. So, okay, so here are those properties which you can set them, styles and so on. I don't know if I mentioned, if not I will do it now. This is very important. The GTK guys, they dropped the properties and styles in GTK4. Of course the GTK4 is not object of our videos, but I wanted to inform you that that you know that these properties and styles are no more in GTK4. They are not present anymore. But anyway, we are working with GTK3, and GTK3 will be still along used. This means even the GTK4 is out now, and stable mode it is not basically is not important for you to work with it because it's too new. Okay, so you have signals. We'll talk about signals, so you know how to work with signals, so we don't need to talk too much about it. And then we have those types and values, which is very important, because a lot of people they start working with GTK3 and then they start to work with some functions, and at some point those functions has or have some let's say parameters, arguments, and they just waste too much time to think what's with those parameters or arguments and what that means and so on. This happens because types and values are ignored. So before you work with a widget, no matter which one, just be sure that you check these things here, because they are very important. And of course types and values are missing here, but you will find it all the time, I think at the bottom or somewhere, and this is very important for you that you use them. You see, type and values, just read them at least one time to understand what entry means, what entry class means, and so on. Entry icon positions, then those purpose. So you see here all those macros, and of course you have another hints here and so on. So please check them before you work with GTK-Entry. Once that you read them, and once that you understand for what this widget is, here's the description also. As you can see, you can read it and so on. CSS nodes, as you can see, there are some. The main node is entry and so on. All these things are very important if you are working with GTK to understand them. Okay, so let's see. I prepared already some functions. These are the first functions on our tutorial. So we will go and start with the first one, with the main function which works with every widget, which has a widget name and new. So that being said, says GTK-Entry new creates a new entry. Okay, so let's see. Returns a GTK-Widget and takes no parameter. So by returning a new GTK-Widget, we need to create this widget, because it returns this widget, GTK-Widget. Let's call it entry, and then let's point our entry pointer to this function, takes void. So now we will go into put this entry inside our window through GTK container add, and after that we print it again with together with the window. I will compile and run the program. As you can see here, this is the GtkEntry new function. This is the thing which makes, so which means this function takes this information and give you a way or an opportunity to work with this input function. Okay, so now before we move, we can apply some CSS. So the CSS said that the main node, it is call it entry. Of course, you know that you can change it all the time with GtkWidget set name, and then here you call your entry and then your new name. Okay, I just do it just to show you if you already forgot how it's working. So this is very important for you. Okay, I will add now entry. I will change the background now to a new color. I know, let's say brown. Okay, I will run the program after I compile it, and as you can see, okay, background color, you see, I forgot a letter here. I run the program now and works fine. The background is brown. Of course, I can set the new name here instead of entry, which is of course the same thing, as you can see. So the difference between using this or this is that by using entry means everything which it's named entry, or all your entries, they will be applied through this CSS block here. So by providing a new name, then working with this name, it will be applied only to this entry which you created here, and not from all your entries. Okay, let's change the color, because color applies to better if you work with the white or something which is not so dark. Yes, you can see the text now. It is of course not so big, so you can change it. We can change it with, I know, let's say font style, which will be let's say, how about 20 pixels, for example. Now I will save it and run it, and the font will be much bigger. Okay, I forgot again something. No, font style 20 pixels. So where the problem is, let's see, font style. Okay, font weight, of course, not font style. Okay, this is my second mistake, because font style, font weight is not working. It has to be font weight. Sorry guys, I'm just too tired now. I work 24 hours. Okay, so now as you can see here is your text, which is bigger and works fine. Okay, anyway, let's move on to the next function. So by meaning the next function, it says GTKEntry set text. Okay, let's see what's the story with this function. It is here and says sets the text in the widget to the given value, replacing the current context. We have no context, so this means it has nothing to replace, but the use of this function is very important. I will show you why. Says see GTKEntry buffer set text. This we'll talk later because it's not important now. The important thing here is only that this function returns void, so this means you need no pointer to point to this function. You just need to call it. You already know that, and of course those two parameters are your entry and the new text. So let's see, let's run this function. Okay, so sorry. Okay, the first one is our GtkEntry. You already know that you need to cast to the proper pointer, and then the new text, let's call it, I know, type here. Okay, that being said, if I run the program now, you will see here's the text, you see, which means by meaning having this text here helps your, let's say, your user which use your application to know that this is an entry point here, so you can type something here and so on. Anyway, it is noticeable, so this means you already see that it is, so you don't really need it, but if you have it and it's there, it's just a better way or a helping way to inform your user about this entry, and then you can start typing. Okay, you will see where it's important here. You don't notice too much difference, but we're gonna come to the next later, and then you will notice. The next one is GTKEntry get text. So this is like I already said, almost every function here which has a set has a text also, a get also. So the get text says retrieve the content of the entry widget. So cedit type, we're going to see about this later, and says that takes a GTKEntry as a parameter. Okay, so and returns a gchar. By returning this, we're going to work with it. So let me put it here, and says let me call it text. Okay, I will just copy the name of the function now, and then we need the entry, so I'll copy it to here. I don't want to type it again, and then we're going to use gprint, and we have said text is our text pointer. Okay, I'll run the program now. Nope, I run the program now, and as you can see, the text which is here, it is also here. So this means everything you type here, you can have it there. The way how you can have it, we'll talk about this later after you type something. Okay, now I will comment this part here because we don't need it. Okay, now let's move to the next function. The next one says set the visibility. Okay, let's see what's the story with this function, and where do we need it. Okay, so this function says sets whether the content of the entry are visible or not. When visibility is set to false, characters are displayed as the invisible char, and will also appear that way when the text in the widget is copied elsewhere. So this means by default GTK, this is very important to know why it happens, what it will be happened. I will show you. So this is an explanation about what happens, why it's happening. So by default GTK picks the best invisible character available in the current font. What this means you will see in a moment, but it can be changed with GTKEntry set invisible char and so on. Okay, so we know that this function we needed, it returns void, so we don't need to point it to something, we just need to call it and takes two parameter. The first one is your entry, and the second one is a gboolean, which you already know is true or false. So visible is just a name there, don't be scared about that. So okay, I will call this function. We already know that the first one is our entry, and the second one is the gboolean. I will call the true, which defaults now. Let's see what happens. You see, nothing's happened because it's set to true, but watch what happens if you set it to false. Not less, false. I'll run the program now. Now watch. When I type something, you see those dots? Well, this is the part which the author said here, by default GTK picks the best invisible char available in the current font. So based on my current font which I have it, the GTK picks those dots. So this is what you get. Okay, and now let's move to the next function, which is very important for this one, which we already have it. Says okay, before we move, I want to just inform you that there are functions which, like I said, where you said you can get, but this time is just a gboolean, so this means I will not gonna provide an example, because you at this point you already know that a function which returns gboolean, it means only true or false. So this means after you work with this function, if you work with this function, you just call this function an if statement. For example, if GTK entries get visible, then do something, or if not, then not. So this means it's just a gboolean, so we don't need to work with this, so there is no example to be provided. Okay, now it's the next one which is important, the function which pointed out here, as you can see. So let's see, let's call this function. Okay, and sets the character to use in place of the actual text. So this means after we called this function here, yes, the GTK defaults to a character which was available in the current font, which was those dots. But if you don't like it, for example, if you want to make a password field or something, and you need to replace those or you need to be sure that those characters here are not dots but are stars, for example, or something like that, then this is your function which you need it. So that being said, set invisible char, I will call it, and this function needs two parameters. The first is your entry, returns nothing, and the second one is the character which a Unicode character. So this means it's the character which you want to have it. What this means, let's see. Like I said, the first one is our GTK entry right here, and the second one is our character. So I put a star this time here, and because we choose this, now when I run the program now, okay, I forgot something. Yes, of course, because it says watch, says a char. You see, it's not a pointer, so it has to be a char and not a string, because now I provide a string, my mistake. Okay, I will change it to char, so single quotes, and now watch, you see, and now we have a clean password field, the thing you want to have it. Of course, you can change it to whatever you want to, for example, let's say the @ or whatever. It's not important. The important thing is that once that you have it, it's there the way you need it. It's your decision, and so on. Okay, let's move on. Next function said it's GTK entry unset invisible char. This means this function, it is right here, says unset the invisible char properly set with GTK entry set invisible char, so that the default invisible char is used again. So this means when you call this function, let me call again. You see, after you call this function, which takes only one parameter, the GTK entry, this means this function is overridden, and then this function just defaults to what happens here when you call GTK entry set visibility, and that's the point of this function. This means at this point when I type something, will be those dots. Yes. Okay. So this is the part with those three functions. Now let's move on to the next section, next function, and of course you have a get invisible char. This is the char which you set it here. As you can see, it returns the same thing, which is a second parameter of this function. So once that you set it, if you programmatically need to find out which one is, you just need to call this function by pointing it to unsigned char, and then after you have it, you can check against this, so you can print it or whatever you want to do. So okay, now next, GTK entry set has frame. This is a very important thing. This is the thing which I was pointing you when I was talking about here. I said that it is a good thing to show your users which work with your application that's an entry. So there will be a point where it will be very important. It's not all the time, but now it happens to be something very different. So let me show you something. let's see what the reference says before we work with this. Okay, I hate this, so let me go back and search it. Has frame. Okay, so it says whatever the entry has a valid frame around it. What this means? So let me show you something. I run the program now and watch. Here is our window, here is our GTK entry, here's our entry, and you see this margin here, this let's say this border here, this is the entry frame. So by meaning when you create an entry, you have this part here which shows like an entry, the way how most of people they know it, but there are some people which they don't like this, so they don't like to have this, let's say, this border, this frame. So by calling this function GTK has frame, which takes two parameters, which one is a true or false and the second one is an entry, you can change this. So let me see, there is no true or false here. I had something but is not. Okay, whatever. I will just pass this, change it to true at the beginning. I run the program. So basically by running the way how I call it, set it to true, nothing happens. So the border is here, the frame is here. Let me set it to false. And as you can see, it's not there anymore. Anyway, the cursor is here, but if you have a big application, you never know where you apply your cursor. So it could be that the cursor is not here. So by seeing something like this, it's not very important for you to have entry without a frame. But if you needed to have it like that, then is comes this function which I already told you, GTKEntry set text, which helps your user to know that that's an entry there. It's not just a container with a brown background, you see. So type here says you have no cursor, nothing, so it will look somehow like this, and the user knows, okay, so here I can type something, and I will start to type something, and that's it. Okay, so that being said, today we learn about these functions, how we set entries, how we set them, the text visibility, if we want to see it or not, which kind of character we want to have. For example, if you create a password field or something, then you will learn about how to set it, how to unset it, and how to get it, and so on. And the last thing, which a lot of people they used to like it and they work with it, GTKEntry set has frame, which defaults to true. They set it to false because they like it better like that. And of course you can set the text to inform the user that here where is no frame and looks like a container, it is actually a entry. Okay guys, I think this is everything we need to cover about this function. Until next tutorial, thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe, share with your friends and neighbors, and until next time, see you guys.